Sound advice to keep your body and mind in perfect harmony. You're tuned in to the Dr. Stephen Show. Now, here is Dr. Stephen Eisenberg.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the season premiere of Dr. Stephen Show, Season 2. Even though nowadays, Season 1, Season 2, does it really matter? The question is, how do you feel better? How can we feel better as a society? And my guest today, oh my God, he is the guru of autoimmunity. This book, The Autoimmune Fix, by my guest, Dr. Tom O'Brien, won the National Book Award. And it's probably, from my research, the first book from health, in the health category, to win the National Book Award. I love this guy. He's amazing, Dr. Tom O'Brien. I've known him for years, and I just love him. He is, I call him the guru of gluten. He was gluten-free before there was such a thing. Of course, I'm a board-certified oncologist, for those that don't know me. And of course, there's celiac disease, which is when you're really get sick from gluten. But then there's all these other gluten sensitivities that we're learning more and more about. And Dr. Tom was way ahead of the curve. Gluten-free before there was a gluten-free, okay? But let me tell you, we're going to go over the autoimmune fix. How can we fix ourselves and get over our autoimmune issues? And then we've got a new book coming out, first here on the Dr. Stephen Show, You Can Fix Your Brain, which I am definitely in need of, Dr. Tom, but we'll work on that later. But right now, this comes out in September. You heard it first on the season premiere, Dr. Stephen Show, Season 2, Dr. Tom O'Brien. I've always been envious of your head of hair. It's a great hairline. I know that's why you came here today.
Actually, it's suggestive of celiac disease. That there are a couple of papers published that if you go from the chin to the bottom of the nose, that same distance again, and that same distance again, you should hit your hairline. But if you see, I don't. So a large forehead. So if you go on Google, type in large forehead and celiac disease, here are the studies. And in a room, you can say gluten sensitive, gluten sensitive, gluten sensitive. Those are the people that it'd be of value just to check and see.
Oh my Lord! Can I just say something here? Because I don't have a forehead. I have a 5 head.
Yeah, right.
Look at the size of my forehead, everyone. I mean, it's like, can you zoom in? Look at that forehead. I'm kidding, but it's really big, and that's why I do believe that I have gluten sensitivity. But let's take one step back. Your National Book Award winner, The Autoimmune Fix, everyone get it. Email me at stephen@drstephen.com and I'll get you a copy. But what is, for everyone watching, not everyone's a doctor watching this show, can we just take a step back? What is autoimmunity?
You bet.
What is it?
Mrs. Patient, your immune system is the armed forces in your body. It's there to protect you. There's an Army, an Air Force, a Marines, a Coast Guard, a Navy. We call them IgA, IgG, IgE, IgM, IgD, lymphocyte response assay, white blood cell count, the differential in the white blood cell count. There's many different branches of the armed forces, but they're all there to protect you. Autoimmunity is when your armed forces are attacking your own tissue. And depending on your genetics, it can be your brain, your lungs, your liver, your kidneys, your muscles, your bones, skin. It just depends on your genetic vulnerability when this happens as to what tissue the autoimmune mechanism will show up in.
Mm-hmm. So rheumatoid arthritis is
Rheumatoid arthritis is when it goes after your joints. And historically, doctors have always known and believed, shut down the immune system because it's attacking your joints with rheumatoid arthritis. That's what we thought.
Right?
Prednisone. Now we know that's not the case. Your immune system is not making a mistake. And there's one mechanism, you brought up rheumatoid, it's called molecular mimicry. What that means is if you get a bacterial infection And there's a couple that are very common with rheumatoid. One of them is Proteus. The other one is Klebsiella. If you get this bacteria, then you get like an infection of this bacteria, your immune system makes antibodies to kill the bacteria. But the signature of that bacteria that the immune system's looking for in your bloodstream to fire chemical bullets to kill it, that signature looks like your joints. It looks like the collagen in your joints. So those antibodies going after this bacteria can actually go after your joints. So it's molecular mimicry that the joints mimic or look like the bacteria that the immune system is fighting. So what do? You don't shut down the immune system, you get rid of the bacteria. And when you get rid of the bacteria, you reduce the inflammation, and many times the joints just calm down and the symptoms will relax. And that's true with MS and Hashimoto's thyroid disease and psoriasis, lupus, scleroderma. The autoimmune diseases are often, what the science says is you can arrest, and that's the language, you can arrest the development of autoimmune disease by healing the gut. That's the primary mechanism, is healing the gut.
Yeah, last season we had Isabella Wentz, we had Mark Hyman, we had wonderful guests that were really drilling home the gut, the power of the gut. Now, I just want to take a little step back, and you know, I think that most of America can say that they're tired. I think everyone out there is tired. They're not sleeping well. Their gut isn't as healthy as it could be, and that's where functional medicine comes in, and the gut health. But what are some symptoms? Is what I'm getting at, is where people could say, well, maybe I have an autoimmune thing going on. I mean, yeah, we're all tired, we're all distracted, we're all on our phones 24 hours a day, we've got blue light in our face at 3 in the morning, we're not sleeping. You know, Ariana Huffington talks about put your phone away and don't even bring it in the bedroom.
Right, turn off the wireless at night.
Right, but this is all connected.
Right.
The brain-gut connection, the brain-heart connection. I know I'm getting a little all over the place.
No,
but
you're not. You're not. That's actually what I talk about in You Can Fix Your Brain, is that there are, I call it the 4 pillars that we have to look at for any health condition. It might be structural, which is the home of chiropractic and massage and Feldenkrais and Alexander technique and your pillows that you sleep with.
Osteopathic.
Osteopathic, traditional osteopathic.
Yeah.
And your car seats. I mean, if your car seat's way back like this and you're driving like this, well, if you stand up like that, your head's like this, and you get neck problems and headaches, right? So there's the mechanical. Then there's the biochemical that we all know about. That's nutrition and food and pharmaceuticals and water and air, what happens in the biochemistry in our body. Then there's the electromagnetic, which is cell phones and the wirelesses that we're exposed to all the time now. The alarm clock next to your bed may be the reason why you can't sleep very well, because it's leaking electricity. There's all these little things. And then there's a spiritual or psychological. And we've all heard of stinking thinking, right? Right? And so there's 4 pillars that have to be looked at for any health condition, because any of these 4 pillars that are out of balance can cause inflammation. It can train. There are many studies on each of the 4 pillars, how they can cause this inflammation. So how do you think about inflammation? Mrs. Patient, if you pull at a chain, the chain always breaks at the weakest link. It's at one end, the middle, the other end, it's your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, wherever your genetic weak link is, right? And your genes determine where your weak link is. So the first thing you want to do is stop pulling on the chain so hard, right? And what is the pull on the chain? It's inflammation. So if you reduce the inflammation in your diet, you find that you start feeling better.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Well, it depends. You have to look at the 4 pillars. Is it the foods you're eating that are causing inflammation? Is it having a battery next to your brain causing inflammation? Cell phones, or a Bluetooth hanging on your ear? Is it a toxic relationship, or is it bad energy in that, or is it your structure? Do you have arthritis in your neck, pinching on your nerves and causing some kind of pain?
Yes.
So there's 4 categories to look at, but the goal is to reduce the inflammation so you stop pulling on the chain, and when you do that, you can arrest the development of autoimmune diseases.
Yeah, so I want to tell a little personal story. this was maybe 10 years ago. I was going through a very difficult time in my professional life. Our practice was breaking up. I was severely stressed, not sleeping, and I developed an autoimmune disorder, colitis.
Mm-hmm.
And my C-reactive protein was really high.
Mm-hmm.
That's a marker of inflammation that you can check in the blood. And mine was sky high.
Mm-hmm.
And
so that doesn't tell you what's wrong. It just says you're on fire.
I was on fire.
You've got a lot of inflammation. You're pulling on the chain. And one of the genetic weak links for you was your colon. So you got colitis, and inflammation of the colon.
Itis it means inflammation of whatever, appendicitis, colitis,
arthritis, bursitis, conjunctivitis.
Yeah.
They're itises. They're inflammation.
And what helped me get better the first step was to decrease the stress.
Yeah.
It was stress, and I started to meditate, and that really, really helped. And then I changed my diet completely and got rid of gluten and started doing massive doses of probiotics.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about gluten so much. How did you become the guru of gluten before there was such a thing? I want to hear the story of how, what gave you the clues to become the guru of gluten?
39 years ago, I was in my internship, and my wife and I could not get pregnant. I called the 7 most famous holistic doctors I'd ever heard of, and I asked what they do for infertility. They all told me what they do. I wrote it down, and I put a program together. We were pregnant in 6 weeks. My neighbors in married housing, we lived on campus, asked if I'd work with them because she had been through artificial insemination and nothing had worked. And I said, well, I don't know what I'm doing, but I don't think it'll hurt you. Sure. She was pregnant in 3 months. So we were so happy and, with the pregnancy and hot to trot. Wow. I wanted to help every couple get pregnant that I could. And there's not much in medicine that's all or every, but this is an every. In my clinical experience, this was an every. Every patient that had any type of hormone imbalance related symptoms, whatever they are, they always were eating foods that they did not know were a problem for them, causing inflammation. Always. And the most common food was wheat. So I started reading more research about wheat. And you read a study and it really captures your attention, and at the back where the references are, I'd say, oh, I need to get that one and that one and that one. And so I'd order those. I start reading those, and I just kept going.
There's no internet.
There was no internet.
You had to get each paper
that's right.
sent to you.
That's right.
There was a thing called mail, everyone, I know. But that's amazing. So you really were investigating wheat.
And because of the mail, this thing called mail, I was writing to the authors and I was asking them questions. So they'd write back because no one was writing to the authors, right?
Right.
And so all this information came in, and I felt like I was on the inside with the researchers, which encouraged me to learn more and ask more questions.
Yeah, so what does gluten do when you're sensitive to gluten? Is everybody sensitive to gluten? Should
yes.
everybody stop it, or is it just certain individuals?
Well, that's a different question. Is everyone sensitive? Yes. Harvard's published the papers, Hollon, Hollon, and his team at Harvard in 2014, and there are 5 different studies on this, but they showed it. Every single human gets inflammation and intestinal permeability when they eat wheat. Everyone. Now, Mrs. Patient, you have an entire new body every 7 years. Some cells regenerate really quickly, like the inside lining of your guts every 3 to 5 days. Some cells are really slow, like bone cells, but we have a whole new body every 7 years. And the fastest growing cells in the body are the inside lining of the gut. You eat wheat for breakfast, you tear the lining of your gut, but it heals. You have a sandwich for lunch, you tear the lining of the gut, it heals. Pasta for dinner, you tear the lining, it heals. Croutons on your salad, tear the lining, but it heals. A cookie, tear the lining, but it heals. Day after week after month after year until one day, you don't heal anymore. When that happens, now you've got intestinal permeability. It's called pathogenic intestinal permeability, which is the gateway into the development of autoimmune diseases.
The little old leaky gut.
The leaky gut. And that's when you start pulling on the chain, is when you get the leaky gut. And wherever your genetic weak link is, that's where your symptoms are going to be. That's why there's over 22,000 studies on wheat and how it affects the body. There's no tissue in the body that might not be affected. It just depends on where your genetic weak link is as to where it's going to manifest.
So wheat. So what about what about Wheaties? I mean,
no, it's really our entire society is based on eating wheat. It's the most common food we eat. Anywhere you go, at the airport, it's hard to see anything that's for sale to eat that's not wheat based.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reading this book, *Sapiens*, and it talks about how we became from hunter-gatherers to wheat growers.
Yes.
And it was part of our evolution
Right.
of being humans.
Right.
But, I mean, that's the agricultural revolution. In a way, we started down this path of becoming unhealthier when we started growing wheat.
That's exactly right. But the thing about wheat, and your immune system reacts to wheat just like if it's a parasite. The same thing as if you got a worm or a bad bacteria. That's how the immune system reacts. But in general, your immune system looks at it in your gut and says, it's wheat. It's kind of an annoyance, but it's okay. Let it go. Just let it go. That's why everyone's not sick, is because it's fine. Okay, go ahead. You're fine. Go ahead. Right. Until you cross the line.
You reach a threshold.
You reach a threshold, and it's called loss of oral tolerance. When you lose tolerance to this minor irritant, now you start fighting it. Now you get intestinal permeability. Now you have a problem. And the bottom line as to why we lose oral tolerance is all of the toxic chemicals we're exposed to in our world today that the immune system is having to fight constantly every day. Fight, 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 fight. In your gut, 70% of the immune system's in your gut. And we're having to fight this and fight this and fight this and fight this. All the crud that's in the water, the tap water that we drink. But it's still better to drink water than not drink water. But fight, fight, fight. And so at one point, your immune system that's so hyper-vigilant protecting you says, even the little annoyances, no more annoyance. And now you fight wheat. When you fight wheat, now you cross the line of oral tolerance. Now you get pathogenic intestinal permeability. Now molecules go through into the bloodstream that shouldn't because of the leaky gut. And then wherever your genetic weak link is, that's where you start to develop the autoimmune mechanism.
And that's nurture meeting nature.
That's right.
I want better memory, better productivity, and better sleep. And you can fix your brain. It says just 1 hour a week to best memory, productivity, and sleep I've ever had. I want those.
Yes.
I want those. Now, this is a nice chunky book. How can I do this in just 1 hour a week?
Well, here's the reason why there's so many good ideas for taking care of your health, and people have a hard time implementing them. There's too much. People get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And
There's too much to do.
There's too much. If you take 1 hour a week and you say, you know what, I'm going to focus on what Dr. Stephen talked about, and I'm going to listen to that episode again because there were so many good ideas in there. Every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, I'm going to go back and listen to that episode. Or every Sunday morning before church, or whenever it is. But every week for an hour, just 1 hour, you're going to review something and review it. After 4 or 6 or 8 or 10 weeks, you've got it down. Then you can move on to the next topic. And if it takes you 6 months or a year to really understand how to stop pulling on the chain so hard, who cares? You've implemented into your life for the rest of your life.
Yes.
That we all think, I want it now. I want the home run now. And what wins the ball game is base hits. Base hits win the ball game. Just base hits. Just keep laying down the bunts. Just develop the small habits. Just develop the small habits at 1 hour a week.
1% shifts.
There you go.
Now, wait. Now, so the first half of the show, we talked about gluten. What's the first step someone who's watching right now can do to? I mean, it's hard to stop gluten in this society.
It is.
How does one? I mean, you can switch. You can make those little switches.
Yes.
Like from I don't know what's a switch they could do from instead of bread. They could eat
rice cakes. Coconut wraps are really great. You make sandwiches with coconut wraps. They're delicious and they're fun and they're easy. There are a number of recipes in the book, and so we guide people on how to do this. And what's important is that you stock your cabinet, your pantry. Stock your pantry with things that are gluten-free. When you look in the refrigerator and you see that the barbecue sauce has wheat in it, go get some gluten-free barbecue sauce.
So the first step is what our friend Ben Hardy talks about. Willpower doesn't work, is to go through and get rid of everything with gluten.
Yeah, just
remove it from your house. If it's not there, you won't have it.
Well, I'm going to eat it up. Well, we'll put that on your tombstone. You can't just use the stuff up. You save it for guests if you want to poison your guests. I don't know. But you don't feed it to your family. Once you realize, wow, even though I don't get sick when I eat it, I understand now, the science says. It'll take you an hour a week. If you read the book, it takes you an hour, and there's so many simple steps in there. For example, when you pump gas, can you sometimes smell the gas?
Yeah, every time.
You're smelling benzene. Benzene is a neurotoxin. It goes through your nasal cavity, down into the lungs, into the bloodstream, or straight up to the brain. If you breathe it in, it goes into the lungs, or it goes straight up to the brain, and it's an inflammatory neurotoxin. So what do? You have to pump gas. Well, you're standing there, you're downwind. Walk around to the other side of the pump, and now you're upwind, right? We just don't think of these little things. And so both books are full of such great little tips like that, because our goal is to get you thinking, how do I reduce the toxins in my life? How do I make more options available for gluten-free with my family so my kids love this food?
Yeah.
But 1 hour a week, you can't do it all at once. It's really, unless you're sick. If you're sick, you stop today. And you go gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free. And there's guidelines in the book to do that.
Gluten-free,
dairy-free, sugar-free.
Sugar-free. That's the key.
That is the key.
I mean, I like what you're saying, though, but start slow, so you're not going to become so, I failed, and then you just go right back to what you were doing before.
Right. There's a term, a Tibetan term, and I'm not sure I'm going to say it correctly, but I think it's Maitri, Maitri, and it means loving kindness and an unconditional friendship with one's self. You have to be kind to yourself, and you don't beat yourself up. If you have the approach of base hits win the ball game, and you're going to blow it sometimes, everybody does.
No one's perfect.
But if you have that, just little base hits, all right, that was a base hit today, that was great, I did that instead of this, that's a base hit. 6 months from now, a year from now, boom, you've got it.
Yeah.
You've really got it.
So I think what we're hearing from the wonderful doctor is take the first step. Go through your cabinets. Go through what you have in your house right now. And do this. Start tonight.
Yeah.
Go look around and get rid of gluten. And how do they know if something has gluten in it or not?
So what you would do is with a pen and paper, you go into the pantry, and we talk about it in You Can Fix Your Brain. You go in and you just look at what's in your pantry, or look at what's on the shelf in the refrigerator. Barbecue sauce, gluten. Replace barbecue sauce. Replace ketchup. Replace mustard. If you see they've got wheat starch, gluten, anything like that. There's a whole list in the book of the different names of components of wheat that may be in your foods.
Because it's not just going to say wheat gluten.
No, it's not.
Say,
It may.
They disguise it, don't they?
Exactly.
Doesn't the big nutrition disguise
they often
the
do.
names of wheat?
Like soy sauce. They put wheat in soy sauce. There's no reason.
We have this huge thing of Kikkoman soy sauce at home.
Right.
I'm pouring wheat on my...
Yeah. If you read the label, you'll see the small print. There's wheat in there. So you get
I didn't even think
tamari.
to look at the soy sauce.
Exactly. That's why the lists are in the book. And you get tamari instead, because tamari is aged soy sauce without wheat. And tastes great. It tastes better than regular. You know, the age gives it a little deeper flavor. But you just make the list of everything in your pantry and in your refrigerator that you discover has wheat in it, and then you go to the store or you go to Thrive Market. Thrive
Yes.
Market is really great. They're online.
Yeah, shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out to Thrive.
Yeah.
They're our friends here at the show. I write a daily blog, and I write a lot about you can know what to do, but actually doing it
Yes.
is, in many cases, a lot harder than knowing what to do.
Yes.
Someone could read this amazing book that won the National Book Award, and then if they don't actually do the small steps,
Yes.
they're not going to feel better.
They're overwhelmed by so much in the book. Oh, I need to do this and this and this and this and this. They're overwhelmed.
So I want to focus on what, and I think we're getting there. I don't think we're there quite yet, but what can somebody do right now, listening to this?
For many of our patients, unless they're sick, if they're sick, we don't do this, but if they're just not feeling well, they got a little brain fog.
tired.
Yeah, I'm tired.
I'm foggy. I hear this every day in my practice.
Mrs. Patient, it's going to be much easier if you're kind to yourself and we transition as opposed to going cold turkey.
Self-compassion.
Are you willing to allow it to take a couple of months to really feel great? If you are willing and knowing that you're feeling better every day, then let's start with 3 breakfasts a week with no wheat. Let's just start there.
I like that. A little step.
Yeah, base hits win the ball game.
You've said that a few times, and it's not that hard to understand. But what about people who don't know baseball? A base hit is just a single.
Right.
It's not a home run. We're
Right.
not saying you have to go and throw out your entire, because people are not going to do that.
Right, unless they're really sick, unless they've got multiple sclerosis or severe rheumatoid and they can hardly walk, then there's no time to mess around. Then you just do everything.
But most people listening
don't
are,
have to
I'm
do that.
tired, I feel
Right.
foggy,
Right.
I just don't have the get up and go I used to have.
Right.
And I hear it every day. So that's what I want. So something like 3 breakfasts
A week.
Right. Without wheat.
Right.
That's a good starting point.
There's
now
so many-
I feel like we're getting on the court. We're
Right.
on the field.
And
at least.
then when you're ready, it'll be 4 breakfasts a week. And then it'll be 5 because you found so many great recipes for breakfast that your family likes.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got lots of options. And then all your breakfasts.
And
then you'll do all the breakfasts and 3 lunches a week where you don't have sandwiches. And at first that's really threatening because in our society we've grown up with sandwiches, right?
Yes,
So,
sandwiches.
You know, and if you want, you can use gluten-free breads, but the gluten-free, and they taste good now. They used to taste like cardboard.
Right.
But now they taste good, but they're just white paste.
Really?
There's no nutritive value to the gluten-free products. And it's actually
What's a
danger.
better option? A coconut?
The
wrap
coconut wraps or some other grains you can use like rice. For most people is okay. Some doctors tell people to go completely grain-free.
Grain-free. So
And
gluten-free is not grain-free.
Correct. Gluten-free means no wheat.
Wheat.
No wheat, rye, or barley.
Wheat, rye, or barley.
Right.
Yeah. I know. I probably knew that at some point, but grain-free. So, no. Isn't there, one of our friends wrote a book, "No Grain, No Pain" or
That's
something?
right. That was Dr. Osborne, Peter Osborne.
Yes. That's beyond gluten, right?
Right.
That's all grain.
Right. Dr. Osborne was one of the first doctors on a national scale to say, if you're sensitive to wheat, get all grains out of your diet. And people feel great when they do that. It's just harder to do that. And I'm concerned that the attrition rate, people that throw the baby out with the bathwater, is higher. But for those that are serious or that are really sick, it's a good recommendation. Get all grains out. Just get them out.
If we are intimately linked with our environment,
Yes.
as we both agree that we are, we have to then take steps, proactive steps, small steps,
Baby steps.
to change base hits, baby steps, to change our environment, what we're putting in our mouths, right? What we're eating.
This is how I say it, that almost all diseases are diseases of inflammation. At the cellular level, the cell's on fire. Stop throwing gasoline on the fire. That's the first thing. And the most common source of gasoline on the fire is what's on the end of your fork. Mm-hmm. That's the most common source, is what we're putting in our mouths. There are others, like if your house is moldy or you're exposed to toxic chemicals. There's some other things you have to look at, but the most common is what's on the end of your fork.
People don't realize that the autoimmune response, everything we come into contact with from the outside world, our food is an invader, so to speak.
It
the
has
air
the
we
potential.
breathe.
Right.
And water we drink. I think it's so important to take these little steps. But I also like what we're saying in terms of, okay, there's what we can do in our environment, what we eat, what we have in our homes. And I think the first step is to do those baby steps and start to remove things from your home. If it's not in the home, you can't eat it. But I love what you're saying about the brain and the self-compassion.
Yes.
Because we try to be so perfect all the time.
We think we have to be perfect.
And I write about forgive yourself. Don't blame yourself for every little thing going wrong if you feel sick. You have to give up the blame and then start to show some compassion to yourself. Forgive yourself if you ate a slice of pizza.
Right. When patients come in and say, "Oh, doc, I felt so sick yesterday. I had a piece of my son's pizza." And I say, "Congratulations, that's wonderful. Now no one can argue with you. Now you know. So it's up to you."
Right.
You want to throw gasoline on the fire? Now you know, because they were feeling so much better. They had a piece of pizza. Oh, man, it's just not worth it.
And they felt it.
They felt it. They felt it.
They felt it.
I fully agree with what you're saying. And the way that I say it to people is we have to recognize that we're all human. And as humans, we're going to make mistakes. We always make mistakes. In our culture, we've been bred to believe we're supposed to be perfect, and when we're not, we cover it up. We cover up that we're not perfect. And, young girls, young teenage girls, that all the pressures of looking like a model or some beautiful thing, and it's such pressure to not be yourself, but to look like some vision.
Yeah.
Right? I was just talking to a friend this morning about that. And my message is, look, if you realize that we're all human, we're all going to mess up, and if you have Mimicry, loving kindness to yourself, oh man, I really messed up there. Oh, well, okay, I did my best, and next time I hope to do a little better. And then you just keep moving forward with it.
Yeah,
you don't have to beat yourself up.
Yeah, and that, when I told my story a little earlier, I was trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
I was this newly minted oncologist.
Yes.
Hotshot. And I was trying to be perfect, and then the practice sort of disintegrated, and I was beating myself up.
Yeah.
I had a young family, and I was beating myself up, and I was embarrassed because here I am, the holistic-minded, integrative oncologist who was stressed.
Yes.
And I had lost my own way.
Yes.
And it took a lot for me to get back on my path.
That's why all of us in this world of online health education, writing books and things, we all think you're a nutcase. And we love you for it because you're authentic, you're yourself, and you sing to your patients, and you're yourself, and people love that. I think we all need to be ourselves, just the way we are, and of course with compassion in interacting with others.
Yeah.
And my guidance for people is be kind. Don't be nice. Nice is, I don't want to make any waves, I don't want to upset you. Kind is, I'm going to be authentic with compassion.
Yeah.
And be authentic with compassion for yourself. Oh, I really messed up there. Well, I did my best. Hopefully tomorrow my best will be a little better.
Yeah.
And just keep moving forward.
That's the best advice I've heard. When I started to honor who I really was.
Yes.
Yes, I always wanted to bring the guitar into the chemo suite.
Yes.
But it wasn't until I started actually doing it. Peter Himmelman, this famous musician, wrote me a song. because I won a contest that he was having. And then I said, I need to start doing this in my own life.
Yes.
And the song was about the doctor who believed in music and believed in compassion.
Yes. Oh,
and so I
marvelous.
started believing it
Yeah.
in my own heart. Instead of just saying the words, I had to take the action. I knew it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But until I started doing it for myself, and then I started feeling better.
And your patients started getting better. More of your patients got better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
So-
exactly right. I'm sorry. I just realized I called you a nutcase on the show. But
It's absolutely true.
But we,
It's absolutely
we
true.
have to be ourselves.
Yeah.
We just have to be ourselves. And people, my primary mentor, Dr. George Goodhart, was the man that founded applied kinesiology, the muscle testing thing,
Yeah.
right? And he'd say, study hard, exactly. Yeah. Study hard. Plant your seeds in the garden. Work hard. And watch the harvest. And when you harvest, people will come from miles around to watch you burn. Right? Because you're on fire. You're on fire. You're on fire. And you've got hundreds of thousands that watch your show because you're authentic with who you are. And it's a great model for everyone.
No, well, I think it was Seal that said, we're never going to survive unless we get a little bit crazy.
There you go.
And it, crazy in a good way, meaning crazy self-expression, crazy loving people, thinking outside of the box.
I like to say not being nice. You're not like, oh, I'm not going to say something because it might offend someone. You're kind, which is authentic with compassion, always with compassion.
Yes. Now, I want to know a little bit more about the 4 pillars.
What I'm so proud of in this book is that I've coined a term that I hope becomes as popular a term as leaky gut. And that is capital B, number 4, a breach of the blood-brain barrier. Because when you get leaky gut, you get leaky brain. And so I've got many studies in there that talk about it. And you don't get brain dysfunction and brain diseases unless you have a breach of the blood-brain barrier, leaky brain.
We talk about in oncology all the time the blood-brain barrier, the chemo doesn't
Can't get
to
through
the brain.
Right.
But it can leak.
Right. And it's so very common, so very, very common. And we talk about the tests now that are out that allow you to identify if there's a breach of the blood-brain barrier, if you have B4. So
B4.
B4, capital B, number 4. So if you have B4, here are the protocols to deal with it. Stop throwing gasoline on the fire. It's the same as a leaky gut.
What would a symptom be? Fogginess?
Depression.
Depression.
Anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's.
The big ones.
They all are associated. Just read the studies. They all have a breach of the blood-brain barrier.
So my grandmother, my mother's mother, had Alzheimer's, and she was from the old Russia,
Yes.
The old country in Russia, and she lived on her Jewish matzo ball soup and her
Yes.
fat, all the Jewish foods. But I wonder if she had gone gluten-free back in the day, would it have not been as bad?
Many of the
And my own
Eastern
mother, I worry.
European, many of the Eastern European Jewish people, they're Ashkenazi.
Right.
The Ashkenazis don't have the genes to digest gluten. That they're more than actually no humans can digest it, but the Ashkenazis have the genes that make their threshold, that loss of oral tolerance, come much earlier in life, and usually they carry the genes that the weak link in the chain is the brain. So here comes Alzheimer's. And it's a mechanism you can identify it years and years in advance.
So there's blood tests, there's
Yes.
special laboratory testing that people can do.
Yes.
I know there's these companies that come out and they, you can, I'll do all these special blood tests that
Yes.
are beyond just your LabCorp stuff that
Beyond-
I do in my
beyond-
office.
Right, beyond the LabCorp. And
Right.
it's all outlined in the book.
Great. So people can reach out to you and do you see patients? Can people come to your, or are we just doing
I
speaking now?
don't see patients anymore. We have a team that I've trained, and we do online consultations and guidance on how do you transition over and all of that. We do. Our website is thedoctor.com.
I love that, by the way.
DR.
You know, mine's drsteven.com.
Oh, that's perfect. I tried for Dr. Tom, but someone had it. It was a dentist that had it, right? So.
The Doctor and Dr. I think those are probably the two best of all of our friends, right?
Yes,
I mean, come
so.
on, right?
Right.
But in all seriousness, you can fix your brain.
You can fix your brain. 1 hour a week. Takes you 6 months to a year to develop the protocol. It may take you 2 years, 3 years to fix it, or it might take you 3 weeks. It just depends on how much damage is there. But 1 hour a week is all it takes to get those base hits and keep moving forward with the healthier lifestyle, less gasoline on the fire. Let me give you one example.
Please.
There are 5 different types of Alzheimer's. The most common type is called inhalation Alzheimer's. It's what we're breathing that causes the inflammation in the brain that eventually manifests as all that plaque that gets in the brain, the beta amyloid plaque. It's what we're breathing. 60 to 65% of Alzheimer's patients, when checked, have this inhalation inflammatory cascade coming from what we're breathing. And where's the most common? It's your house. It's mold in the house. If you go on vacation and when you come home you have to open the windows to air the house out, you got mold in your house. You need to have the house checked because you're breathing it every day. You can't tell. It may be very minor, but it's enough to cause inflammation. In the 1990s, every dog who they did autopsy and biopsy on from Mexico City, every dog had the evidence of early Alzheimer's, the evidence of the brain inflammation. In the 2000s, to mid-2000s to late 2000s and into the early teens, every child they check with blood work or urine test, because now we have the test, every child they check has the evidence of early inflammation in the brain that's early Alzheimer's mechanisms. Every child.
Wow. Because
the pollution is so bad. In Mexico City, they're breathing it all the time. Remember inhalation Alzheimer's? They're breathing the air all the time that's full of all that garbage.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So when you learn that in this book, and I tell people in the book, how do you know if your city's bad or not? Well, you can just go online and check the particulate matter in your city, or take your car to the car wash, a nice car wash. You know where the guy's got that little water bottle on, and right, one of those. Get a nice car wash, take it home, park outside your house. 4 hours later, go outside, run your hand across the windshield. That's what you're breathing all day, every day, is that particulate matter. That's what you're breathing. That's what's in the air.
And your IgG is trying to protect you.
Exactly.
Your lungs. Now, I want to reward our viewers for watching and listening. The book doesn't come out until September. You Can Fix Your Brain, Dr. Tom O'Brien. Now, it's 1 hour a week to best memory, productivity, and sleep you've ever had. We talked about what people can do for autoimmune. What can someone do listening to this right now to start their 1 hour a week protocol? How can they jumpstart before the book? What can they do right now to get this 1 hour a week thing revving up?
Reduce the inflammation. And the most common source of where the inflammation comes from is what's on the end of your fork.
Got that.
That's most common. So if you address your foods and find out what foods am I sensitive to, or just try wheat-free, dairy-free, sugar-free for 3 weeks. The rule of thumb in my office has always been 3 weeks. That's all it takes. You should know you're on the right path within, I don't care what you've got. I don't care if you can't walk because of the rheumatoid, or if you've been diagnosed with a tumor or a cancer. I don't care what you have. Within 3 weeks, you should know, you know what? I'm sleeping a little better, or my energy's a little bit better, or my joints aren't as sore as they usually are. You should see that you're on the right. It may take you 2 years to get completely healed. I mean, Dr. Bredesen, Dale Bredesen at UCLA now is reversing Alzheimer's. He's got over 100 patients with all of the records.
UCLA.
They were in Alzheimer's facilities. Now they're able to go back home and live with their families. Or they were at home with their families and they couldn't work. Now they're able to go to work.
Gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free. Why shouldn't every human being do that?
There is no reason why not. There is no reason. Now with Dr. Bredesen's protocol, there's 37 things on the checklist that you have to fix. Of course, get wheat out of their diet. Get dairy out of their diet. Get sugar out of their diet. Of course, those are on the list. But also, are they sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night? If not, teach them how. Are they walking every day for at least 30 minutes? If not, make sure they do.
30 minutes.
Yeah. Do they have elevated homocysteine levels? Get it down. You know, there's 37 things on the checklist.
37.
That's why, I don't know if you've heard, but a couple of pharmaceutical companies that I've heard of now have closed their Alzheimer's research departments and laid off the scientists. They said, you know, there's no way. We've spent tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. There is no drug that's going to fix Alzheimer's. There never will be.
It scares me.
Because it's a lifestyle, and you have to change the lifestyle. Here's how I give people the visual for this one, if I may. When you go in to see a doctor, say you got brain fog, you can't remember the way you used to, it's like you've fallen over a waterfall and you've crashed into the pond below, right? You swim up to the surface and you spit the water. Oh, thank God I'm alive. Wow. And you're trying to stay afloat in this pond of memory loss, or this pond of diabetes, or this pond of recurrent miscarriages. It doesn't matter what the symptoms are. You're in the pond. And everybody wants to stay afloat. But it's really hard because the water's so turbulent because the waterfall keeps falling into the pond. So the water's really turbulent, right? So we're looking for the life jacket to keep afloat in the pond of memory loss or in the pond of diabetes. And you want the life jacket with the least side effects possible, you know, to reduce the symptoms.
Yes.
But then you don't stay in the pond because the way you live your life is what's caused the problem. So what do? Swim over to the side of the pond, get out of the water, walk up the hill, walk back up the river, and find out what the heck fell in the river that carried me downstream, and I fell into the pond of memory loss. So that's Dr. Bredesen's protocol. Or for diabetes, you have to figure out what is it. Or for autoimmunity, what is it that happened to me back upstream? That's why we call it upstream, right?
Yeah.
And you want to go back upstream to figure out what is it that set all this up.
Wow. And it's and the biggest clue is at the end of your fork.
That's right.
It's a good place to start.
It's a great place to start because that's where most inflammation comes from.
And inflammation is getting control of inflammation is a key component of the Autoimmune Fix.
Both books.
And as we will see in coming up on You Can Fix Your Brain, get rid of the inflammation. And it changed my life. So I want to thank you for being here today. I want to thank you for the work you do. I want to thank you for being the gluten of guru, the guru of gluten, rather. And I want to say, you're absolutely right. I am cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and not real Cocoa Puffs.
Right.
But I love what you say, because we're never going to survive unless we get a little out of the box.
That's right. Exactly right.
And thanks for being here. I love you.
Thank you so much.
And I'll see you next time. And I'll see all of you next time on the Dr. Steven Show.
He picks up that didgeridoo and plays music they can't forget. Dr. Steven. Dr. Steven Eisenberg. Dr. Steven. Woo! Dr. Steven Eisenberg. Dr. Steven. Dr. Steven Eisenberg.